All right, so the media is back at it. I say back at it like they ever stop. So I found an Axios article, and this is going to start ramping up over these next couple months with midterm elections coming up later on in the year. But the media is really ramping up their usual shtick, the Democratic media at the very least, in blaming the left for the failures of the corrupted, so far gone Democratic Party. So this is an article from Axios that I want to read to you, essentially blaming the left, the quote unquote squad, for the failures of the Democratic Party. Now, to preface my comments before I really get into this, look, I think the squad is entirely inaccurate. I think the quote unquote left that exists within Congress is, I mean, they're so feeble. They don't know how to fight. They have no strategy. And they honestly neglect their biggest ally, being the people, being the working class. They don't ally themselves with the people. It seems like they just don't know where to go. They've lost their way if they had even found it in the first place. But anyway, I have many criticisms of them, is what I'm trying to say. But to come out and blame them for the failures of the party that's being run by Joe Biden, a neoliberal corporate Democrat. Are you kidding me? The party that's run by Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, those aren't brazen progressives. To pretend like a person like AOC is running the Democratic Party, first of all, you're not being honest. Secondly, and I genuinely mean this, you're a fucking idiot if you believe that somebody like AOC or Ilhan Omar or Jamal Bowman or any of those people is running the Democratic Party as if the policies that they suggest are getting not even a second look, but a first look, okay? But this article says the following. The hard left politics of Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the so-called squad, once a dominant thing for vast numbers of elected Democrats, is backfiring big time on the party in power. Top Democrats tell us why it matters. The push to defund the police, rename schools, and tear down statues has created a significant obstacle to Democrats keeping control of the House, the Senate, and the party's overall image. It's what we've been screaming about for a year, said Matt Bennett, co-founder of Center Left Third Way. We launched Shield PAC to defend moderate Democrats. It's a huge problem. The latest sign of backlash was the landslide 70% plus recall this week of 3 San Francisco school board members who were criticized for prioritizing issues like renaming of 44 public schools, including ones honoring George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, over a return to in-person classes. Other factors like an abrupt admissions change to a prestigious high school were at play, but the most liberal city and the most liberal state decided that liberal activists had gone too far. It's a part of a barrage of evidence that the progressive activism of the squad pushed the party's image way too left, where most voters are, even most Democratic voters. Representative Josh Gottheimer of the Bipartisan Problem Solving Solvers Caucus told Axios, "What I'm hearing at home and what I'm focused on are common sense, bipartisan solutions, from tackling grocery and gas prices to cutting taxes and fixing our infrastructure to investing in law enforcement and fighting crime." I think you get the sentiment here, but I will read you this. Republicans' decisive sweep of statewide offices in Virginia was powered in part by Democrats' failure to appreciate parent skepticism about school mask mandates, policies on transgender rights, and approach to teaching about race. So what he's saying there is the reason Republicans won in Virginia. If you remember, Glenn Youngkin went up against, I believe it's Terry McAuliffe, in that Virginia race for governor. And not only did he wax his ass, they won statewide offices as well, they being the Republicans. And this dumbass is saying that the reason that happened is because the Democrats failed to appreciate parent skepticisms about mask mandates, policies on transgender rights, teaching about race in school. Realize something. When the Democrats lose, idiot Democrat defenders like this asshole and many people like him will always come out to find any other reason as to why they lost other than the actual reason why they lost. Okay? And allow me to tell you why the Democrats lose. You know what? Let's just start with the Virginia election. Terry McAuliffe is incredibly corrupt. He had nothing to offer. He had nothing to offer. That's really it. And he played the game of the culture war. When you're not offering people health care, when you're not offering them higher wages, when you're not promising them a right to a union, a right to a job, a right to a home, all the basic necessities of life. This isn't anything radical. These are basic needs that any society, especially a rich country like America, should guarantee their citizens. When you're not offering them any of that stuff, and you just tell them to vote for you because you're not Donald Trump, which is the Democrats' sole and only message and has been for the past years or so, they're so much more susceptible to culture war nonsense. Things that, in the grand scheme of things, don't matter whatsoever. Glenn Youngkin won by campaigning on banning critical race theory, something that isn't taught in any public school or private school in his entire state. That is something that's taught in higher education, i.e., college, and not even really in undergrad. Graduate school. We're talking law school. How many people in this country have been to graduate school? How many people have been to law school? It's a meager amount, but he won running on that nonsense. So you got to wonder, how bad was the person that he was running against? And then to blame the squad as if their agenda is on the table here. If the Democratic Party, which is led by Joe Biden, the person that I assume he voted for, is running the party, or if AOC is running the party, why is student debt still here? Why hasn't that been eliminated? Why hasn't marijuana been legalized? Why haven't we had a vote on universal health care or something like that? Why hasn't Biden extended health care through the provision that he can in the ACA during a pandemic? Why hasn't he done these incredibly progressive policies? Why hasn't he freed the nonviolent drug offenders? Want to tell me why? Because the type of losing politics that's destroying the Democratic Party and his approval rating, and the reason why they're going to get destroyed in the midterms, is the type of politics that he subscribes to, that you subscribes to, this false sense of centrism. Oh yeah, we're centrists. We're smack dab in the middle of public opinion. No, the fuck you're not. No, the fuck you're not. Look at any poll. Look at any poll. Oh, but that's right. They don't look at the polls because public opinion doesn't affect the laws that get passed in this country. The Princeton study told us that. But they're so diluted, and they live under this illusionment that everything they do is right and they can never be wrong. And it's always the fault of the left, even if their policies never gets passed. Biden was his most popular when he gave everybody money, when he passed those $1,400 checks. Ever since then, it's been a downward spiral towards the bottom. If you did something as simple as legalize marijuana, you could probably ride that into the next election and win. That's how bad the situation is in this country. But they're so terrible and they're so corrupted and backed by big money, they're not going to do anything like that. But see, they failed to bring that up. They failed to bring up the fact that both parties are insanely corrupt. But just speaking of the Democrats here, they're corporatists. This is the party of a corporatocracy, which is what we have in this country. They don't want to raise taxes on millionaires and billionaires, which is incredibly popular among the people. They don't want to raise taxes on corporations, which is incredibly popular among the people. They don't want to do popular legislation. They don't want to do paid family and medical leave. They let the child tax credits expire, which cut child poverty by like 30%. Child poverty has spiked as a result. Guess who's going to get blamed for that? The fucking Democrats. Guess who's going to get blamed for not getting rid of student loan debt? The fucking Democrats. You don't do the things that the people want you to do, and then you suffer the consequences, and then you blame people that have nothing to do with the fact that you're now suffering the consequences. It makes absolutely no sense. I feel like I'm just rambling at this point, but hopefully you get it. The Democrats lose because they fucking suck. They don't lose because of AOC or Ilhan Omar or anybody else. Those people aren't being listened to. They're not, okay? The people that are running the party are the people that these people want to run the party. And that's why they're losing.